The Daxamite warships burst from hyperspace like ravenous wolves descending upon a wounded lamb. Earth, the unsuspecting prey, lay vulnerable beneath them. Commander Oren smiled, savoring the moment before he gave the order to attack. Years of merciless conquest had taught him that primitive species always fell swiftly under Daxamite might. This backwater planet, with its fractured nations and feeble militaries, would be no different. Or so he believed. As the first dropship screamed through the atmosphere, streaking towards the planet's surface like flaming meteors, the humans unleashed hell. Missile batteries and Gauss cannons, secretly developed from captured alien tech, lit up the sky. The night burned as human weapons tore into the Daxamite ships, shredding hulls and sending warriors to fiery graves. On the front lines, Staff Sergeant Derek Cooper rallied his Marines, their rifles barking as they cut down the invaders with unrelenting fury. Oren snarled as reports flooded in of shocking human resistance. Impossible! These primates dared defy the galaxy's mightiest empire? Enraged, he ordered an orbital bombardment to crush their insolence. Cities became ash and millions perished. Yet the survivors fought even harder, spurred by unbreakable determination to defend their home. Undaunted by the aliens' terrible weapons, Cooper and soldiers like him across the globe took the fight to the enemy. They ambushed patrols, wrecked supply depots, and stormed enemy bases. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in raw grit and ruthless cunning. The Daxamites, for all their arrogant bluster, soon found themselves mired in a pitiless war with a species that refused to break. Cooper had a plan to strike the Daxamites at their black heart. While Oren schemed to capture humans and uncover some crippling weakness, the sergeant and his lethal Marines prepared to infiltrate the warship Galactic Enforcer itself, to bring the fight to the aliens' doorstep and show them the indomitable will of mankind. The Daxamites wanted conquest, but humanity would give them only blood and ruin. This was no longer just a battle. This was a reckoning. In the bowels of the Galactic Enforcer, Lieutenant Jake Armstrong gritted his teeth against the searing pain that ripped through his body. Dr. Zara loomed over him, her cold, calculating eyes studying his every twitch and shudder as she probed his mind with her insidious devices. "Fascinating," she murmured, her voice devoid of empathy. "Your kind possesses a mental resilience I've never encountered before. What secrets do you hide, human?" Armstrong glared at her, his face hardened. "Go to hell," he spat. Dr. Zara merely smiled, a cruel, predatory expression. "Oh, I intend to drag you there with me." She increased the power of her mind probe, and Armstrong's world exploded in agony. White-hot needles pierced his skull, setting his nerves ablaze. Yet through the blinding torment, he clung to thoughts of his fellow soldiers, his family back home, the entire human race depending on him. He would not yield. He would not break. Unbeknownst to Dr. Zara, her experiments had awakened something deep within Armstrong's psyche, a latent psionic ability that lay dormant in all humans. As she tore through the layers of his mind, seeking weaknesses to exploit, Armstrong unconsciously tapped into this hidden power. He pushed back against the invasive tendrils of Dr. Zara's probe, his mental defenses growing stronger with each passing moment. The pain receded, replaced by a surging tide of energy that pulsed through his veins like liquid fire. Just as Dr. Zara prepared to launch another assault on Armstrong's mind, an explosion rocked the laboratory. The door blasted inward, revealing Staff Sergeant Cooper and his team, their stolen Daxamite armor splattered with green blood. "Take them down," Cooper roared, his rifle spitting plasma bolts at the stunned Daxamite guards. Chaos erupted as Cooper's Marines stormed the lab, engaging the guards in brutal close-quarters combat. Dr. Zara whirled to face the intruders, her hand reaching for the energy whip coiled at her waist. But Armstrong, his strength renewed by the psionic energy surging within him, seized his chance. He lashed out with his mind, sending a wave of force slamming into Dr. Zara. She flew backwards, crashing into a bank of monitoring equipment in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Cooper rushed to Armstrong's side, quickly freeing him from his restraints. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice tight with urgency. Armstrong nodded grimly. "I can fight." Together, they joined the fray, Armstrong's newfound psionic powers adding a terrifying new dimension to the battle. Daxamite soldiers crumpled under the onslaught of his mental blasts, their minds overwhelmed by the raw power of human perseverance. As Cooper and his team fought their way back to their shuttle with the rescued prisoners, they found their path blocked by the towering figure of Commander Orin. The Daxamite's eyes blazed with fury as he charged at Cooper, his fists hammering like pistons. Cooper met him head-on, his own skills honed by years of training in combat. They traded blows in a brutal dance, each seeking to overpower the other through sheer force of will. But even Cooper's formidable strength and cunning were no match for Orin's genetically enhanced physique. The Daxamite commander slowly gained the upper hand, his blows coming faster and harder, driving Cooper back step by inexorable step. Just as it seemed Cooper would be overwhelmed, Armstrong unleashed the full might of his psionic power. A lance of pure mental energy slammed into Orin, staggering him. Cooper seized the opening, hammering the Daxamite with a devastating uppercut that snapped his head back and sent him crashing to the deck, unconscious. "Move, move, move!" Cooper barked, herding the freed prisoners towards the waiting shuttle. As the humans made their desperate escape, Dr. Zara watched from the shadows, her eyes alight with a newfound understanding. The human's psionic potential changed everything. If she could harness that power, bend it to her will. She smiled, a cold, calculating expression. The war had just taken a new and unexpected turn, and Dr. Zara intended to be the one to shape its course. Cooper's stolen Daxamite shuttle screamed through Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from re-entry. Inside, Armstrong slumped against the bulkhead, sweat beading on his forehead as he struggled to control his newfound psionic abilities. "How you holding up, Lieutenant?" Cooper asked, his eyes never leaving the flight controls. Armstrong grimaced. "Like my brain's on fire, but I'll manage." The shuttle touched down at the Resistance's hidden base, a sprawling underground complex nestled deep within the Rocky Mountains. As Cooper led his team and the rescued prisoners through the winding corridors, they were met by General Hawkins, her face a mask of unbreakable spirit. "Report, Sergeant," she ordered. Cooper saluted. "Mission accomplished, ma'am. We've got intel that could turn the tide of this war." In the command center, Cooper's team gathered around a holographic display. Dr. Zara's research files flickered to life, revealing schematics for a device that sent murmurs rippling through the assembled soldiers. "A psionic amplifier," Armstrong breathed, his eyes wide. General Hawkins leaned forward, her voice tight. "And you're certain this technology can enhance human abilities?" Cooper nodded. "We've seen it firsthand. If we can get our hands on this tech, we might just have a chance against the Daxamites." "There's a research facility in the Rockies," a young woman interjected, her fingers flying over a datapad. "Sergeant Lena Durand, Cyber Warfare Division. I've been monitoring Daxamite communications. That's where they're developing this tech." Hawkins studied the facility's defenses, her brow furrowed. "It's a fortress. Getting in there won't be easy." "Maybe not," Cooper said, a plan already forming. "But we've got their armor, and now we've got an expert hacker. We can do this." Hours later, Cooper led his strike team through the forest surrounding the Daxamite base. Armstrong moved with newfound grace, his psionic senses alert for any threat. Sergeant Durand crouched beside a security terminal, her fingers dancing across its alien interface. "I'm in," she whispered, "disabling perimeter alarms now." The team slipped inside, their stolen Daxamite armor allowing them to move freely through the facility's corridors. They fought their way through pockets of resistance, Armstrong's psionic blasts clearing a path to the central laboratory. Inside, they found Dr. Zara bent over a complex array of equipment. She whirled to face them, her eyes widening in recognition. "You!" she hissed, reaching for a weapon. Cooper raised his hands. "Wait! We're not here to kill you! We need your help!" Zara hesitated, her gaze flicking between the humans and her life's work. "Why should I assist you primitives?" "Because deep down, you know this war is wrong," Armstrong said, stepping forward. "Help us, and we can free not just Earth, but every world the Daxamites have conquered." For a long moment, Zara was silent. Then slowly she nodded. Very well, I will aid you, but we must hurry. Orin will not. An explosion rocked the facility, cutting her off. Alarms blared as Daxamite troops poured into the lab, led by a figure whose very presence radiated fury. Commander Orin. Traitors, he roared, his eyes locked on Cooper. You dare steal from the Daxamite Empire? Cooper raised his weapon. We're taking back what's ours, our planet, our freedom. The lab erupted into chaos. Armstrong unleashed his amplified psionic powers, sending Daxamite soldiers flying. Cooper and Durand fought back to back, their stolen weapons cutting down wave after wave of attackers. Amidst the mayhem, a tall Daxamite warrior, Kral, Orin's second in command, watched the battle unfold. His eyes narrowed as he saw Orin abandon strategy for blind rage, throwing troops into the humans' killing zone with reckless abandon. Kral's hand tightened on his weapon. It was time for a change in leadership. All units, stand down, he bellowed, his voice cutting through the din of battle. Orin whirled on him, his face contorted with rage. What treachery is this? The only treachery here is your failure as a commander, Kral snarled, raising his weapon. As the two Daxamite leaders clashed, Cooper saw his chance. Move! Now! His team fought their way to the exit, Dr. Zara in tow, the precious psionic amplifier clutched in Armstrong's arms. They sprinted for their waiting shuttle, the sounds of Daxamite civil war fading behind them. As Earth dwindled in the viewport, Cooper turned to his team. We've got the tech. Now comes the hard part. Durand looked up from her console, her eyes shining with possibility. I'm already reaching out to resistance cells on other worlds. The galaxy's about to learn what happens when you push humanity too far. Armstrong nodded, feeling the hum of psionic energy coursing through him. Let's show the Daxamites what real power looks like. The shuttle accelerated, carrying with it the hopes of a planet and the spark that would ignite a galactic rebellion. The stolen Daxamite shuttle docked at a hidden asteroid base, its hull still scorched from atmospheric re-entry. Cooper and his team disembarked, their faces etched with tenacity as they entered the bustling command center. General Hawkins stood before a massive holographic display, her eyes scanning reports from across the galaxy. She turned as Cooper approached, nodding in acknowledgement. The psionic amplifier is already paying dividends, she said, gesturing to the display. We've made contact with resistance cells on 7 different worlds. Cooper stepped closer, studying the intricate web of communication lines crisscrossing the star map. Time to light the fuse, he muttered. Over the next weeks, the human resistance set their ambitious plan in motion. Armstrong, his psionic abilities now greatly enhanced, became their secret weapon. He traveled from world to world aboard a retrofitted stealth ship, making clandestine contact with local rebel leaders. On the volcanic world of Crixus, Armstrong's ship touched down in a field of cooling lava. He stepped out, the acrid air burning his lungs as he surveyed the desolate landscape. A group of figures emerged from a nearby cave, led by a tall, ash-streaked woman with fire in her eyes. I am Yisala, she said, her voice rough from years of breathing Crixus's toxic atmosphere. You're the human scion? Armstrong nodded, extending his hand. As Yisala clasped it, he sent a gentle pulse of psionic energy through the connection. Her eyes widened in amazement. We have much to discuss, Armstrong said. Together, they formulated a plan to strike at the heart of Daxamite control on Crixus. Under the cover of a violent ash storm, Armstrong and Yisala led a small team to infiltrate a notorious labor camp on the planet's northern continent. As they approached the camp's perimeter, Armstrong reached out with his mind, creating a psionic cloak that rendered them invisible to the Daxamite guards. They slipped past towering watchtowers and laser fences, making their way to the central compound. Inside, they found rows upon rows of emaciated Crixian prisoners, forced to work in hellish conditions, mining rare minerals from the planet's crust. Armstrong's teeth clenched at the sight, his psionic energy crackling with impossibly strong rage. Yisala moved swiftly, disabling the camp's security systems while Armstrong used his abilities to incapacitate the guards. Within minutes, alarms blared throughout the facility as prisoners realized their chance for freedom had arrived. As chaos erupted, Armstrong and Isala fought their way to the camp's armory. They broke open weapons caches, distributing plasma rifles and energy shields to the newly liberated Crixians. The prisoners, their spirits rekindled by the taste of freedom, quickly organized into a formidable fighting force. The Daxamite garrison, caught off guard by the sudden uprising, found themselves overwhelmed. Isala led the charge, her tactical brilliance turning the ragtag band of former prisoners into an effective guerrilla army. As the last Daxamite stronghold fell, Isala turned to Armstrong, her eyes gleaming with fierce pride. "This is only the beginning," she said. "Crixus will be free, and we will join your fight against the Empire." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Cooper and Duran coordinated a series of precision strikes against Daxamite infrastructure. Using the wealth of insider knowledge provided by Dr. Zara, they identified critical weak points in the occupiers' industrial network. Duran's fingers flew across her terminal, her face bathed in the glow of scrolling Daxamite code. "I'm in their systems," she announced. "Initiating shutdown protocols. Now." Across Earth and its orbital facilities, Daxamite reactors suddenly powered down. Defense grids flickered and died. Supply depots were thrown into chaos as inventory systems crashed. Cooper watched the unfolding pandemonium on the command center's main screen, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Let's see how they like fighting in the dark," he murmured. As Earth's resistance went on the offensive, similar scenes played out across a dozen Daxamite-controlled worlds. Inspired by the humans' defiance and armed with the tools and tactics shared by Cooper's team, long-suppressed populations rose up against their oppressors. On the Daxamite homeworld of Argonis, Commander Krall paced before a wall of screens, each displaying reports of rebellion and insurrection. His fists clenched as he watched decades of conquest begin to unravel. "Enough!" he roared, turning to his assembled war council. "I want every available warship mobilized. We will crush these upstarts and remind the galaxy why the Daxamite Empire is to be feared." But even as Krall's fleets prepared for departure, cracks began to form in the Empire's facade. Whispers of doubt spread through the ranks. Long-held beliefs about Daxamite superiority were shaken by reports of human scions and successful planetary revolts. As open warfare erupted across multiple sectors, the stage was set for a climactic showdown. The fledgling Galactic Alliance, united by their shared struggle against Daxamite oppression, prepared to confront Krall's war machine in a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds. Armstrong stood on the bridge of the Resistance flagship, gazing out at the assembled fleet of human, Crixian, and other allied vessels. He could feel the fear and anticipation radiating from the crews, but underneath it all was an unshakable commitment. "All ships, report in," he ordered, his voice calm and steady. As the acknowledgments came flooding in, Armstrong allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The real test was about to begin. Armstrong's eyes snapped open, his mind racing with the gravity of their next move. "We're taking the fight to Argonis," he announced, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere on the bridge. Cooper nodded grimly. "The Imperial Citadel." Duran's fingers flew across her console, pulling up schematics and defense readouts. "It's a fortress, unlike anything we've faced before. The security measures are—" "Irrelevant," Armstrong interrupted, a pulse of psionic energy rippling through the air. "We have something they don't. Us." Over the next 72 hours, the Resistance fleet gathered in the shadow of a gas giant on the outskirts of Daxamite space. Ships from a dozen liberated worlds formed up alongside Earth vessels, their hulls bearing the scars of recent battles. In the war room of the flagship, Cooper assembled his strike team. Isala from Crixus stood beside human special forces operatives, her volcanic skin still radiating heat. A towering insectoid warrior from Nix 4 clicked its mandibles in anticipation. "Our primary objective is Krall," Cooper said, gesturing to a hologram of the Citadel's throne room. "We take him out, and the Empire crumbles." Armstrong stepped forward, his eyes glowing with psionic energy. I'll lead the assault. My abilities should give us the edge we need to breach their defenses. As the strike force made final preparations, tension coiled through the assembled fleet. Pilots ran last-minute checks on their fighters. Gunners calibrated weapon systems. Across 100 ships, hearts raced with the knowledge that everything hinged on this moment. The Resistance Armada dropped out of hyperspace in high orbit over Argonis. For a heartbeat, all was silent. Then space erupted into a maelstrom of light and fire. Kral's eyes widened as alarms blared throughout the Citadel. He strode to a massive view screen, watching as the sky above his capital world blazed with the fury of battle. Impossible, he snarled, turning to his war council. How did they penetrate our outer defenses? Before anyone could respond, the floor shook with a tremendous impact. Kral steadied himself against his throne, rage twisting his features. Deploy the elite guard. I want every corridor sealed, every entrance fortified. No one gets in or out of this citadel. In the chaos of the orbital engagement, a single stealth shuttle slipped through Argonis's atmospheric defenses. It screamed towards the planet's surface, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction of re-entry. Armstrong stood at the shuttle's rear hatch, surrounded by his strike team. The psionic amplifier hummed against his chest, filling him with raw power. He took a deep breath, centering himself. Remember, he said, his voice steady despite the turbulence. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every world the Daxamites have ever oppressed. Today, we end their reign of terror. The shuttle touched down with a bone-jarring impact. As the hatch hissed open, Armstrong unleashed a wave of psionic force that shattered the nearest Daxamite defensive positions. Alarms wailed as the resistance fighters poured out, weapons blazing. Cooper and Duran broke off from the main group, leading a small team towards the Citadel's lower levels. We need to find Dr. Zara, Cooper shouted over the din of battle. She might have information that could turn the tide. They fought their way through twisting corridors, Duran's hacking skills allowing them to bypass security checkpoints. As they descended deeper into the bowels of the fortress, the sounds of combat grew more distant. Finally, they reached a heavily fortified door. Duran's eyes widened as she scanned the locking mechanism. This is it, the interrogation chambers. Cooper set a breaching charge while the others took up defensive positions. The explosion rocked the narrow passageway, and they surged forward through the smoke. Inside, they found Dr. Zara strapped to a metal table, her body covered in bruises and burns. Despite her injuries, her eyes blazed with defiance as Cooper approached. "Took you long enough," she croaked, managing a weak smile. As Duran worked to free the doctor, the corridor outside erupted with weapons fire. Cooper spun, raising his rifle as a squad of Daxamite elites charged towards them. "We're cut off!" one of the human operatives shouted. Cooper gritted his teeth, preparing for what might be their last stand. But before the Daxamites could reach them, a ripple of invisible force sent the aliens flying backward. Armstrong stumbled into view, his face pale and drawn. Blood trickled from his nose, and his breathing came in ragged gasps. "Armstrong," Cooper exclaimed. "What happened? Where's Kral?" The Scion's eyes flickered with remembered pain. "Defeated," he managed, "but at a cost. My powers, they're fading." With a grunt of effort, Armstrong extended his hand. The wall beside them groaned and then tore apart, revealing a maintenance shaft. "Go," he ordered. "Get to the extraction point. I'll hold them off." Cooper hesitated, torn between duty and loyalty. But one look at Armstrong's determined face told him there was no changing his friend's mind. As the team helped Dr. Zara into the narrow passage, Cooper clasped Armstrong's shoulder. No words were necessary. They both knew the weight of sacrifice that came with leadership. The last thing Cooper saw as he entered the shaft was Armstrong, turning to face the oncoming Daxamite reinforcements, his body wreathed in crackling psionic energy. The extraction shuttle rocketed away from the burning citadel, weaving through streams of weapons fire. On board, the survivors of the strike team watched in awe as the resistance fleet rained destruction upon the seat of Daxamite power. As Argonis dwindled behind them, Cooper allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. They had struck a critical blow, but the cost had been high, and something told him their struggles were a long way to go. Dr. Zara stirred beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Cooper's expression resolute as he considered the challenges that lay ahead. The Daxamite Empire might be crumbling, but new threats would inevitably rise to fill the power vacuum. Earth and its allies would need to be ready. "Now," he said, his voice filled with grim tenacity, "we build something better."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.